Mark Claxton, the mayor announced today a significant tightening of the deadly force rule in the police department there, which seems to be modeled on Georgia law at the moment, but in which it allows for a relatively, up to yesterday, a relatively subjective judgment by the police officer of the level of danger. And she wants to change that to an objective judgment that would allow juries to make their own judgment about the reasonableness of force rather than, as they generally have done in the past, accept the police officer's judgment as the controlling judgment.
Well, I'm supportive of any training or tactical enhancements of any laws that can add extra layers of protection to the civilian population. But I want us to be clear about something. These shootings, Rayshard Brooks shooting included, is not at all about tactics and training. Police aren't at a tactical or training disadvantage when interacting with civilian population. They react according to the other end of it, other person they consider to be a perpetrator, who too is black and brown, and that's why they react. So it's not about tactics or training. It's about the relationship that law enforcement has to black and brown communities. It's about the dehumanizing of black and brown communities. It's about the enforcement in black and brown communities, so that we can always use additional training and tactics and enhancements. That's all fine and good. But this is not about this. Rayshard Brooks is not about that. Mr. Floyd was not about that. Other cases are not about tactics and training. And I'm concerned that sometimes we kind of get off of what we need to be getting onto and dealing with tactics and training when we should be dealing with toxic police culture, institutional racism, and bias.
And Gerald Griggs, when I was reading Georgia law on this today, I was a little surprised because it reads a little looser than the Supreme Court standard established in 1985 in the Garner case, in which the United States Supreme Court said that the officer is only allowed to shoot if the suspect poses a significant threat to the officer or someone else who is present, present. And the Georgia law, up until now anyway, has seemed a little bit looser than that. Is that why these things are very difficult when you try to bring them as prosecutions in Georgia?
I think so. But, Georgia has been successful in numerous cases of presenting cases where officers use excessive force and convicting them and sentencing them. We just had a case in DeKalb County of Anthony Hill where Officer Robert Olson was convicted and is now sentenced to a 20-year sentence. So I think that the law does need to be tightened up and be more in kin to what the Supreme Court says it is. And I think this particular case can help do that. And I think that the country is now coming to grips with, as the other guest said, the toxic nature of policing in brown and black communities. And we have to start addressing that with convictions so that people understand that you can't treat one community one way and another community another way. There was a shooting that happened just down the road in Spalding County where an individual presented a gun at deputies and fired the gun at individuals, and he was taken alive. And this individual was a white individual. So I think in Georgia, we have to set a standard in all communities by first charging and then convicting these officers when they act out of accordance with the law.